Welcome to Prince Jordan House. Exercise number 99. Sir Kailash Chandra, 100 words a minute, total 1000 words. Be ready? Start. The Textile Inquiry Committee says that we are getting much less cloth than we had even under a foreign government in the year 1938 to 39. Only one conclusion can be drawn from this statement of the Textile Inquiry Committee in its report. I have great respect for his intelligence, and I know that the meaning of the report will not have been lost on him. What I was saying was that Indo-Pakistan trade is very important in the entire scheme of our import-export trade that does not feature much. The market that we lost there is being taken by the foreigners, especially the USA and UK, and the market Pakistan losses in our country is being taken up to a great extent by these two countries. And if you see the line of trade, the fall in the Indo-Pakistan trade has given rise to our trade with one or other of the foreign countries with regard to certain commodities. Our import and export policy does not take initiative to see as to how the trade could be developed with Pakistan. I am aware of the political difficulties that are in the way of the ministry. At the same time, it is the duty of the ministry to take initiative and bring home the fact that unless and until we put our trade between these two countries where normal and natural economic ties have been disreputed on a proper footing, there will always be disadvantages on our side, and certain other interlopers will come in and take advantage of that situation in order to ruin our economy, and that precisely is what is happening today. If you carefully look into the developments in that connection, there is yet another problem of our relations with UK that calls for a separate treatment. In the old days, the home ministers and their leaders and their camp followers were all complaining against the preferential treatment that was then called imperial preference, the various agreements that were arrived at unilaterally for fleecing India's economy. Times have changed, and no longer are we supposed to be in the British Empire. We are a Commonwealth country and a republic. But what about those preferences? Have they all been abolished? Who are driving all the benefits out of them? That is a point which needs clarification. Whenever we raise that point, we are told that we are deriving more benefits because of these preferences than the United Kingdom. But whenever we read their papers, their London Times economic section and all other papers emanating from the city of London, we find that they tell their own people that they are happy that they are having this kind of relationship with us and they are gaining by such preferences. Now, are we to understand that we are both gaining as a result of these preferences? I don't think so. The position is not at all so. On the contrary, as a result of these preferences, India stands to lose. That position, I think, has not been altered to the satisfaction of our country, and the Honorable Minister will perhaps clarify that position when he speaks. If these preferences work to the detriment of our economy, the time has come when we must give them up. We need not go in for such preferences, and I am sure that the policy which is required has got to be adopted in the interests of our entire economy, not merely in the interest of our foreign sector and not merely in the interest of any particular section. Reference has been made to sterling balances. I don't know how much of the sterling balances is left at the moment. It would not exceed 740 crores. It may be much less. A large part of our sterling balances had been expended with a view to meeting the deficits in the balance of payments. It was thought at the end of the war that these balances which had accumulated there would be utilized for financing certain developments in our country, for developing the economy in our country, in particular for importing machinery that we direly required. After the termination of the war, the reverse process took place. I would only mention what Sir Winston Churchill, the Prime Minister at that moment, has written in his war memoirs. He is very bitter about India's claims on sterling balances. He says that he goes not like at all that India should make demands on the sterling balances. He thought that he had saved India and therefore India has no right to claim the sterling balances. This is how he has written, although he does not use the same blunt words, but he makes it very clear. Here is the British Prime Minister who would not like a penny out of the sterling balance to be paid to India, but circumstances have compelled him to do so many things. Similarly, he has been forced to accept a position where sterling balances had to be paid under certain agreements in installments, and we all know that. But you see that large chunks of the sterling balances had been spent for meeting the deficit in the balance of trade. A much bigger amount has been spent for meeting the deficit in the balance of payments, including such items as pensions. You know, we have a tapering annuity out of which pensions are paid, and that money is paid from the sterling balances. Therefore, it is a scandalous thing that these balances had been spent not for the development of the economy of our country, but for meeting certain liabilities which we might have just as well avoided, and liabilities which we should not even recognize. For instance, the liabilities with regard to pensions and all that. It is no use trying to explain the position in great detail regarding the sterling balances in our country. Stop.